I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.
In the heart of New York City, a legacy of boxing legends has shaped the sport, showcasing raw talent and relentless determination. From the gritty streets of Brooklyn to the glitzy arenas of Manhattan, these champions not only defined their era, but also inspired generations of fighters to dream big. Gleason's Gym, a historic boxing haven in Brooklyn, has been the training ground for champions and aspiring fighters alike since its opening in 1937. With its worn punching bags and vibrant stories, the gym embodies the spirit of boxing, serving as a testament to the grit and passion that defines the sport in New York City.
Today, Coach's Corner travels all the way to Brooklyn, New York. We got an exciting show coming up today. We had to go to the Mecca, Gleason's Boxing Gym, the oldest boxing gym in the United States. Greats have trained there, such as Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Jake LaMotta. The list goes on, Floyd Mayweather. So we're here today to meet the owner and talk to him, Bruce Silverglade. Stay tuned for this hot episode of Coach's Corner. We can't do a show without being in one of the best gyms in the world right here. We're at the legendary Gleason's Boxing Gym with the man, Bruce Silverglade, and we appreciate your hospitality, Bruce. Thank you for being on Coach's Corner.
Dave, I appreciate very much that you're here. Next time you come down, bring some of your fighters so they can get a workout while we're talking.
Yeah, I think that, you know what, we'd love to do that. You know, it's been a while. I've been at the old gym. I've had guys fight in the metros over there. It's an honor. You are one of the mainstays of boxing in the city of New York, in the state, probably in the country. My thing is boxing finds us, and we were talking off camera a little bit with you. How did it find you, Bruce?
Well, you know, I was resisting boxing. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. My father was the director of health, recreation, and welfare for the city of Trenton. But his favorite sport and his best area was in boxing. He was the 1980 and the 1984 United States Olympic team manager. We had a police athletic league gym right next door to where I lived that he ran. And so I was always in the gym. We had fighters all the time, all kind of athletes at the house. And it was always a lot of fun. But it was in the 60s, and when I graduated college, I graduated from Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I said, wait a minute, I'm my own man. I'm not going to do what my dad did. I'm going to do my own thing. So I was recruited by Sears Roebuck and Company, and at the time they were the #1 corporation in the world. So went to work and quickly realized that my father was right, and again, I was wrong. I hated what I did. I hated wearing a suit and tie every day and going in and listening to people from Chicago, which were our headquarters, tell me what to do in New York. So the money was good. I was running a store. I had a lot of people working for me. But I contacted my dad and I said, listen, I need a good hobby. Get me involved with amateur boxing. I became a referee and a judge. Quickly realized I didn't like refereeing and judging because I hung out with all the kids. I drove them to the fights, bought them something afterward for dinner. So it was much too difficult to judge them. And so I went into the administration end. I eventually became the president of amateur boxing in New York. And out of Colorado Springs, I was the national chairman for the Junior Olympic program. And it was great. I was having a lot of fun with my hobby and still making my living with Sears Roebuck and Company. I was going around to all the gyms. One day I was in Gleason's when it was in Manhattan. And I was having some coffee with the owner. His name was Ira Becker, and we were friends. And casually having some coffee together, and he said, "Listen, you know, I think I'm going to start looking for a partner." I said, "Hey, don't look any further. I am your partner." I went back to Sears the next day and resigned. And I took my profit sharing, about 50% of the gym. And then in 1991, Ira passed away, and I bought the family out. So I've been the sole owner since 1991.
So, you know, Gleason's, the little background on it prior to you was, you know, Bobby Gleason started in 1937, but his name wasn't Bobby Gleason at the time.
No, his name was Robert Gagliardi.
Right. So he changed it for to satisfy the Irish community. And
it was 1937, and it was in the Bronx, New York, in a section called the Hub. and it was an Irish section. And in 1937, the Irish and the Italians did not get along at all. Okay, so he figured he can't call it Gagliardi's gym because they would burn it down. So he picked a name out of the hat. Picked the name Gleason's because it sounded Irish. Then fortunately, he had a couple champions right away. A fellow by the name of Phil Terranova and then a fellow by the name of Jake LaMotta, both of which were Italian. But it became a hot gym, so he legally changed his name from Gagliardi to Gleason, and it was known as Bobby Gleason's Gym.
And there it is. So originally in the Bronx, when was the move to Brooklyn? You recall?
Brooklyn was 1985, but before we came to Brooklyn, we went to Manhattan.
Correct, that's right.
We went in 1974, the building that the gym was in the Bronx was torn down for a housing project. And Bobby relocated the gym into Manhattan to the corner of 30th and 8th, and it was right next to Madison Square Garden during the heyday of boxing when the Garden was everything. And so every fighter from around the world wanted to fight at Madison Square Garden. So 10-round fighters from other countries would come in and take a 4-round fight just so they had the opportunity to fight at the Garden. And we were right there. We were the gym where everybody had to come into to train. So we were in Manhattan from 1974 to the end of 1985, and one day I was in the gym. The fellow that owned the building, a Chinese gentleman, came in and said, "Bruce, come with me for a minute." He brought me up to the top of the building. First of all, we were the only tenant in a 17-story high-rise for 10 years. So finally the building was sold to this Chinese gentleman. He brought me up to the 17th floor, and you could hear all the noise from the gym up there. It just traveled right up all the columns, right? So he said, "Bruce, I will not be able to sell a single condo if you're in the gym and making all that noise." So we got booted. It was in the 80s, and recession was going on. We had no money. But, Manhattan was the Mecca. It was the center of the universe. So we did not want to leave.
Being next to the Garden, I mean...
Could not have been a better location, Well, we looked around, and we really weren't able to find anything we wanted. And one day, a fellow by the name of David Walentis, who's the developer for this area, came to us and said, "Listen, I'm developing the area between the bridges. It's not a real nice area right now, but I'm going to turn it into a very nice area. And come on over and take a look at it." And went up to his office, and he had a mock-up of how beautiful this area was going to look at. Ira and I looked at one another. We could care less about how beautiful the area was. Gyms aren't normally, boxing gyms aren't normally in the nicer areas. But the rent was dirt cheap. He just wanted us there. So we got a 20,000 square foot place for $3,000. So we jumped on it, and that's how we came over here. And everything that this fellow David Walentis said came true. This area is now called Dumbo, which stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass, and it's currently ranked the 4th wealthiest neighborhood in all 5 boroughs.
5 boroughs, the development has went on.
So it's good and bad. It's nice to have a nice area.
In those days, now you're in Brooklyn, what was it like to reestablish the name of Gleason's, and did you have to almost start over and reinvent yourself, or was it, we're here and all of a sudden we're going to catch fire and fighters are starting to come again?
Well, fortunately, the name Gleason's Gym has a draw to it. And back in the 80s, there were a couple other gyms around. A fellow by Jimmy Glenn had one called the Times Square Gym.
Right.
Michael Ajay had one in Manhattan. But there were no other fight gyms, and Gleason's was really the place where everybody was fighting. So we had a monopoly on the sport. So when we moved, the fighters had to come. And so all the fighters came. We had no major problem, except we had to tell everyone, listen, only come in on the 2 and 3 line, which comes through a place called Brooklyn Heights, a nice area. Don't take the other trains because they're not real nice. So it developed, however, into a very nice neighborhood. We did not have a big problem with the move.
So on a day-to-day, behind the scenes, you're running an active gym, not a one-ring type of gym with many different people coming in here. Athletes, fighters, actors, businessmen, a lot of diversity. Your trainers. How did you have the pick of your trainers, or were you pretty much open to a lot of guys coming in here and saying, okay, we're going to give you an opportunity? Because, your name out there and the product that you put out, the fighters that have trained here, you know, worked with some of your trainers, you know, Hector Roca, Don Saxby. The list goes on. I don't want to leave anybody out or disrespect anybody, but how did you manage that? Because you know, dealing with trainers and fighters, as you know, you've dealt with it a lot longer than I have, could be a little challenging at times.
Yeah, everybody has their own personality. Well, when I purchased the gym, again, 1982, it was an established gym. We were in Manhattan, but it was the hot gym, and everybody was there. The trainers were great. All these old timers, Ray Arcel, people like him.
Right.
So I inherited the trainers that were there. Now I've owned the gym for 42 years, so obviously things have changed. I currently have 92 trainers. And every trainer is here only because I want them to be here. So that
Right.
I have to approve the trainers that want to come. And many of them, like the couple that you've mentioned, Don Saxby in particular, they've grown into great trainers. Hector Roca, who passed away 2 years ago, was with me from Manhattan and built a terrific reputation, was the #1 Spanish trainer in the world for years.
Right.
But, you know, the biggest problem that I have right now is my trainers are all getting old, like me. I mean, they've been with me for many, many years. So I'm looking for some new young blood, and we're getting some nice women trainers and male trainers in here. But everybody has to be approved by me. And as you've mentioned, you know, it's everybody has a personality and everybody has their own style, but if they want to train here, then they have to conform to my style and my rules and regulations.
What's your name and the product you put out there? Like you said, trainers have styles and everything. Is there a formula for them that you want them to abide by, or are you letting them freelance pretty much?
Well, you know, they have to freelance. They have to do what they do, okay?
Right.
And they're here because they're good trainers at what they do. So I don't try to force on them what I want. And you know, you're a trainer. You're a good trainer yourself, so you know that everybody has their own style. Your client, your fighter has a style, but every trainer has a style. So you really can't go there and say change your style to this.
Right.
Because you became successful with your style. I don't want to change your success. I want you and your success to mold into what we do here.
Right, to your name.
Right.
So, being in boxing for so long, you know, starting in New Jersey, being around the amateur game, being here, what changes have you seen in boxing throughout the years?
Well, unfortunately, I think the sport of boxing has changed drastically. If you go into the amateurs, that hasn't changed as much. I think the national office and the national bringing up the fighters and the way they develop them for our tournaments and our Olympics has changed, and unfortunately, unsuccessfully. It's been over 20 years since we've had a gold medalist. We've had a couple, I'm sorry, other than Carissa Shields, we do have a couple females in there.
Right.
But as far as the men are concerned, it has not flourished the way it should have. Again, I went to, my first Olympics was the 76 Olympics in Montreal, where we had 5 gold medalists and a silver medalist. It was terrific. The 3 powerhouses back there were Cuba, the Soviet Union and the United States, and we dominated that year. 1980, unfortunately, there was a boycott because of Afghanistan, and the Americans did not go to Russia for that Olympics. But there was an alternative Olympics in Kenya, in Africa, and 124 teams participated. Again, the United States dominated. 1984. LA, which is going to be next Olympics, but 84 we were in LA. We won 11 out of 12 medals, dominated, and we started to go downhill a little bit after that. We still did okay in Korea. We did okay in Atlanta, but since then it's been downhill. I object really to the fact that our national coaches today are not even Americans.
Right.
Fellow that's the national coach is from England. Not to say he's not a qualified coach, not to say he's not a good person, but you can't compete on the American team unless you're an American. Well, it should be the same thing with the administration. Another thing I took a little objection to, on the poster that I got from our Olympic team, there were 8 fighters. There were 19 support people. Went to Paris for 8 fighters. It seems a little funny to me. But anyway, I think the amateur boxing has become very dull. It's been compared to fencing the last several years. Tap here, tap there. It's not as exciting as it used to be. So I think that's changed. As far as the professionals are concerned, the boxing movement has moved out of New York City for the past 10, 15 years into financial reasons, insurance reasons, but there's very little boxing in New York, and that's a complete opposite as to when I bought the gym in '82, when New York City was the place to box in the whole world. And now there's very, very little boxing. But it's actually leaving the United States now. The Middle East and the Arab countries are the ones that are throwing money at it, and that's where all the big shows are. Even Las Vegas is not as active as it once was. So things are changing. As far as the boxers are concerned, when I first got involved, there was one champion per weight division, and there were only eight weight divisions, and everybody knew who the champions were. The heavyweight champion, he was the #1 man in the world. I mean, if you were the heavyweight champion, you were Jack Dempsey, you were Muhammad Ali, you were the #1 person in the whole world. But today, listen, boxing is my whole life. I get here 5 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week, and I'm here a lot of hours. Okay, I can't name all the champions. I can't name half the champions. Okay, another thing is during our heyday, many of the champions, probably the majority of the champions, were Americans. The TV channels, Channel 7, Wide World of Sports, Channel 2, CBS, ABC, NBC, they all carried boxing on the weekends and on the afternoon shows. So people knew the fighters. They were American fighters. They had just come out of the '76 Olympics. They were picked up by CBS. People knew them, and they were followed by everyone.
We had more of a follow. I mean, I remember growing up watching ABC, and like you had stated before, the 3 powerhouses, United States, Cuba, and the Soviet Union. Those were the fighters, and then later on, the '76 Olympics with Leonard and everybody else just brought it over. I think 2 things with the amateur game that I want to ask you your opinion on. With all that we have today as far as resources as a country, coaches, technology, equipment, why are we coming up short at the Olympic level and other countries? No disrespect, because look, you got to have respect for people who are going to fight.
Anybody that walks into the ring has to have respect.
100%. But why are we coming up short? Is it we're not building the culture for these young fighters to want to be in the amateur program, to want to be an Olympian, or is it too hard and they figure I'm not going to make enough money, and if I have enough talent, I'm going to jump to be a pro?
Well, yeah, it's not that they're not going to make enough money. I mean, the fighters today that become champions make gobs of money, much more than anybody in my time. I think it's the environment, and it's not just the environment in boxing, it's the environment in the United States and probably around the world today. The fighters, kids come in here today, they want to become a boxer in a week. Okay, again, in 1982, when I became to a gym, you could not step into a ring for 6 months. You had to learn the floor. You had to learn balance, stand, throw your hands in sequence, defense. You weren't allowed in the ring. Today, the kids want to go in the ring and start sparring within a couple days. Okay?
Right.
And if they don't, they say, I'm going to another gym, or I'm going to another trainer. So the trainers allow it to happen. But that's one of the problems. And what is it? Again, it's the internet. The internet has some very, very great things. It has some drawbacks. One of the drawbacks is that on the internet, everything is instantaneous. So the fighters that come in today, they think that it's no different, that it's instantaneous. You immediately become a champion. And they don't want to put the time in that's necessary. Also, I think the school programs are lacking. Most of the schools don't have athletic programs any longer.
Well, we're losing, being from the New York area, you're from tri-state area, PAL is gone. We always had PAL, which had boxing programs growing up, going through. Like you said, everything is instantaneous right now. People want to have instant success. They see, I'm going to use it. Is it the Jake Paul effect?
I have no problem with Jake Paul. He found a way to make a living. He found a way to make a lot of money, and so God bless him. It's not a problem.
Right.
The problem in boxing is we don't have a league or a federation like any other sport, basketball, football, soccer. Everything.
Right, good point.
We need a national federation with consistent rules and regulations, with attorneys, with help for the fighters, with some sort of a
program.
Financial program.
So to touch on that point, I agree with you, and this is like, we're going to go back to what you were saying about sanctioning bodies and champions and everything else. Boxing, you're right, is not the NFL, the NBA, or the Major League Baseball. There's not one sanctioning body who rules, and this is the rules. You know it as well as I do. Anybody could really get involved in boxing if there's some money behind them.
Okay.
They can manage.
You don't need money behind you.
Yeah.
You're already involved with boxing.
Yeah.
Anybody in my ring right now, they can go over to New York State Athletic Commission, pay a fee, and become a trainer,
Right.
become a manager, become a promoter, become a gym owner, become a fighter. There's no rules, or there's a rule book, but nobody takes a test.
Right.
Okay. So anybody can get into the sport of boxing, and it needs more rules and regulations. Now the amateurs are a little more defined than the pros, because the amateurs, we have your International Olympic Committee, which goes to your National Olympic Committee, which goes down
Right.
to our LBCs and stuff like that. The pros, every state has a different rule and regulation. Okay, every country is different. Then the governing bodies, the WBC, WBA, they're all different. So if my fighter or your fighter goes to a normal fight, not a championship fight where you have a contract, but goes to a normal fight, they don't know whether they're going to be in a 20-foot ring, a 24-foot ring. They don't know is it a fast ring, is it a slow ring. So we need more consistency. But I think the basic problem with it, the people today are not as in tune to boxing and to sports as they were in the past. Now, I have to admit one thing. When I was a young kid, as I said, I was from Trenton, New Jersey. My father was involved with boxing. I can remember being 8, 9, 10 years old, sitting at the dinner table, and my father saying to me, the fighters today are not nearly as good as they were in my day.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you the same thing. The fighters today are not nearly as good as they were in my day. So, it could be I'm getting old, and I just am not changing with the ways that I should. But boxing today is not. If you look up there, you got Jake LaMotta, you got Sugar Ray Leonard. They fought 6 times. They fought wars, bloody wars. Okay. Now they had one championship fight, which Robinson won. 2 weeks later, they had a rematch. Okay, and the kicker, Robinson, had a fight in between. Okay, so these were wars that they had today.
15 rounds.
And they were 15 rounds. They were 15 round fights.
Title
back
fights,
then,
15
okay?
rounds.
So you don't see it. So those fighters, they had 200 fights, 210 fights. Again, Leonard's era in the 80s, the guys had 50, 60, 70 fights. Today, the fighters don't have anything like that. So, again, the quality of the fights, just through rust, just through the repetitive action, don't fight as much.
But
so
also, do you think, not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Do you think traditionally then, fighters didn't really have a say when and who they were going to fight?
It was
Today, I think fighters are more involved with, who I'm going to fight, when I'm going to fight them, where we're going to fight them.
When we were in Manhattan, we were next to the Garden. The Garden people were there. The trainers were there. Don King was there. Bob Arum was there. People did the fights on handshakes. There were also fights every week in New York. There were different boroughs. Every borough had its own arena. Sometimes there were 2 fights on a weekend. And what happened in the ring, in the gym, the 2 guys would get all right, on Friday we're going to have a fight at Sunnyside Garden. You're fighting this guy. You're fighting this. The only thing that the fighters asked, what do I have to weigh and what time do I have to be there?
Right.
Today, is he left-handed? Is he right-handed? Let me
Right.
look at his background. Oh boy, he had a fight before I did, so I shouldn't take the fight. It's different. Fighters aren't. Now maybe that's good. Maybe it isn't good. To me, I'm a traditionalist. I'm an old man, so to me, it's bullshit. You're supposed to fight whoever they put in front of you.
I'm kind of in agreement with you on that. And you talked about sanctioning bodies. You talked about so many different divisions in boxing today. I have my own theory, which I don't know if everybody kind of agrees with. Many years ago we had the Super Six. We saw great fighters come out of that. In my opinion, the top 10 fighters, like any other sport, if you're top 10, put everybody's name in a hat. If I'm the champ already and we fight off, you lose, you go home, and you go up the ladder. I don't think we'll ever see that in boxing because of the networks and the money involved and maybe the fighters and the managers. But I think from a fan's point, that puts the best fights out there.
It all depends what hat you're wearing, okay? Now you can work both sides for the fighter. There's 17 federations now, 17 champions, okay? You say, well, that's terrible. As a fan, Christ, that's terrible. But, as a fighter, it's not bad. He gets 17 chances to become a champion and make more money for being a champion than he would if there was only one champion. But, as far as the fan is concerned, it's just one champion. How can you have 17 champions? There's one person that's supposed to be the world champion, But it's money is what happened. Again, right after the '76 Olympics, when CBS grabbed up all the fighters, a lot of fights come on. Finally, HBO came along and they jumped in, and then Showtime came along. And what happened? The suits and ties said, I want to put on a championship fight. I don't want a good 10-round fight. They didn't know. They didn't know that a good 10-round fight could be better than a championship fight, okay? They said, we can only put on a championship fight. So the WBA comes along and says, you know what? I got a federation. I'm called the I'm going to give you a world championship fight. It's the WBA. WBC. Hey, I'm going to give you an IBF. I'm going to give you a WBO. I'm going to give you. So that's what happened. It was just money. And it was the TV people that were financing everything. And again, back in the 80s, they were paying real good money back then. They're not any longer. They're not even in the business any longer. But that's what happened. Money came along. And now also, you say, I don't like the fact that some of the fighters fight a year and a half in between. However, if I made 17 or 18 million bucks for a fight, goddamn thing, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
I'd be on my yacht. So you can't blame the fighter for saying, hey, I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm not going back in the gym to sweat.
Well, that's the flip side to older fighters. That was their livelihood. They had to fight to make money. They weren't sitting on a one-fight package where they could just go.
What happened? If a guy came into the gym and said, I want to be a fighter, he could be in the gym and become a fighter, okay? Because there were fights all the time. He could make a living. He'd have a 4-round fight here, a 4-round fight there. Today in New York, there's no fights. So if you come in this gym and say, I become a fighter, say, well, you better have a job. So you're a part-time fighter. You're not a fighter. You're a part-time guy that has the same problems that you and I have for a mortgage, a rent, a wife, a car, all the other problems. And then they have to struggle into the gym and try to train. So
that's a whole nother aspect of the sport right there today. The 1%ers in boxing that are making money, have management, have a promotional contract. I want to kind of move to something else that you were talking about, and you have a big female program here. You were probably one of the guys in the beginning who started it. Now, I think you have roughly, over 400 female members right now that are...
At my high point, I did. That was prior to COVID. Now I have about 250.
Yeah. I mean, I've had Maureen Shea on, who worked with Hector Roca, numerous people involved in the sport on the female end. Right now, we're seeing a big outpour of females in the game, and I think it's really good to see that. What was that like in the beginning, that culture, for you?
Well, it was An age situation. Again, I bought the gym in 1982. My partner, this fellow Ira I'm talking about, was in his 70s at the time. Boxing is a traditional sport, so all the older people said women, they have to be in the kitchen, they have to have babies. I was of the younger generation back then, where women were becoming firemen and policemen and getting into everything. So there was the female revolution was going on. So to me, it was no big deal for a woman to be able to compete in the sport. My partner was opposed to him. Okay, and they were not allowed to fight in New York. The amateurs,
Right.
they weren't even allowed to fight in the amateurs back then. There were a few female pros, but there were very, very few. Okay, so we were struggling for money, having a lot of problems paying our rent, and I would go to my partner and say, Ira, let's let the women fight. I mean, let them come into the gym and train. I mean, there's half the population are female. Why are we cutting off half of our revenue? We need some money. Partner kept saying no. Now, we were equal partners, okay? However, again, my generation, you respected your elders, and you know, we were 50-50, but I bought the gym from him, or I became his partner. So he wanted to say something, I would go along with it, okay? But eventually, I said, listen, Ira, when I go to the bank in the morning and make a deposit, they don't say, is this female money or is it male money? They just take our money. Come on and let us pay our bills. So we said, okay. So we were in Manhattan. We only had one, it was a 5,000 square foot gym. We had one bathroom and changing area. So we closed the gym 3 nights a week to the men and let the women come in, and became very, very successful. And the reason why we had so many women in the gym anyway was because we've done 26 movies, we've done commercials, so there's always women on the crew, and they said, what a great workout, we want to do it, you know. So anyway, we started the experiment. It was very, very successful. Then a couple years later, we moved to the Brooklyn area, and we built the facilities for the women, and it's been great. So we were the first gym in New York to allow women to train and then to compete, and we've trained here 15 female world champions.
Right.
And,
Yeah, you've had some great success out of here. I know Heather Hardy's been out of here, Sonia Lamonicas, a lot of other people that I'm probably missing on. You know, where do you see the sport of boxing going right now? What is the future here? You've been around so long. You've seen so many different facets of it. Today, owning a gym, you've built it. You know, it is not an easy route. And you mentioned before, we're losing the elder statesmen of trainers, people like yourself who've been around the sport so many years, that have seen so many great fighters, changes, trainers. You've seen the political, the business end of it. You mentioned about it going overseas, but where do we see it in the States?
100% positive. Everything goes in cycles. There's been times when boxing was banned in the United States. There was times when the sport was banned in the state of New York. It bounces back. Right now, you know, we're probably in the doldrums, both amateur and professional, but it's going to come back. I can tell you exactly when boxing started, okay? As soon as there were 3 men on earth, 2 of them got into a fight, and the other guy was screaming, yelling, and was the fan. But people love boxing. I'm sure anytime you go out, if you go to dinner and there's somebody comes to the table, they mention boxing, boom, that's the topic. Okay, go to anywhere. People love the sport of boxing, and boxing is more popular today than ever as far as people are concerned, as far as training is concerned. You have a fight gym, I have a fight gym, but there are so many gyms that are opening up that aren't fight gyms. They just have some heavy bags and some music and some pretty women. So people go into that and start training. I love them. There's not enough of them because that's our training ground. Because the people that go into that type of a gym would never step into your gym. They would never step into my gym. It's not what they want, okay? But they go into this, they get an introduction to the physical fitness and the type of workout that is, and it's like, this is great, what's next? So then a percentage of them walk into your gym, they come over here to Gleason's because they want to get something better. So it's popular. Everybody loves boxing. Okay? Look at how many commercials, look at how many movies. Christ, we just had another one out about Willie Pep last week. There's another one that's in the can now coming out. I mean, It's popular. There are books after books after books and movies and shows after. Everybody loves boxing.
Well, it goes back, right? It goes back to long before us.
Yeah.
Bare knuckle.
As soon as the three men on
Yeah,
that, that's when
there
it went
you
back
go.
there.
Now, throughout the years, people probably asked you, right? You've been here. Who are some of the best fighters that you've seen walk through these doors?
Well, my favorite was Roberto Duran. I just thought he was an amazing fighter. We had some good fighters. We had Cassius Clay. Finally became Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
We had Tyson. Riddick Bowe was the little kid running around here. And all these pictures are fighters that have trained here. Camacho, Benitez, all of them. But my favorite was Roberto Duran. He was vicious in training. He just had the mentality to be a fighter. He didn't want to fool around. And unfortunately, a lot of the youngsters today, they see the end of his career when he got a little bit heavy and stuff like that. When he was in his heyday, he was my top fighter.
Yeah, he was great fight with Leonard, great career. A fan favorite in New York, packed the Garden.
Everywhere.
Everywhere he went. As far as the training now, if you were to give advice to fighters and trainers today,
I do all day long.
yeah. What would it be? What's your advice now? Play golf? Stay away? No.
Listen, if you want to become a champion, the only person in the whole world that can make you a champion is you. Okay, I have a good gym. We have a history of bringing people to the top of the game, but it's not the gym. It's not the name of the gym. It's not the trainer. It's you. Okay, if you want to dedicate 24, 36 months of your life just to the sport of boxing, learn the basics of boxing, you can walk away very wealthy. It's a good sport.
No, honestly, it's a sport that once you get there, it keeps you there. It's hard to walk.
It's very addictive.
It's hard to walk
addictive
away.
sport.
And like you said, people want to talk about boxing. People today, we're seeing the evolution of what you said, other gyms opening up, heavy bags, pad work, women for self-defense, self-esteem, health reasons, youth. I think right now we're seeing a lot of younger kids at 7, 8, 9 years old gravitating towards the boxing gym, gravitating towards the programs to, benefit themselves, self-esteem, discipline. And, I talk about this all the time, and you've seen it at the pro level here. But because of your diversity in your gym and the amount of people of different backgrounds that come through here, boxing kind of is a gateway for people to be successful. Not everybody's going to be a pro fighter. Not everybody's going to be a trainer. I mean, I'm sure you've seen many success stories of people who've trained in your gym. They're not just pros, but, they're successful businessmen, parents, adults.
Absolutely. Boxing is the greatest sport for that purpose. Okay, my gym, like your gym, I'm sure most boxing gyms are the last melting pots. Okay, I have fellows from Wall Street that make more money than God. I have kids from the projects that have very, very little money, and everything in between. Okay, I have women, children. My oldest person here is 83. My youngest is 5. Everything in between. You can't name a part of society or a type of business or education level that I don't have, and the opposite of it. And when you're in a gym, it doesn't matter. Everybody is the same. Everybody pays the same here. Everybody is treated the same here. If you look out that window and you see all the people out there that are sweating, you know who's the doctor, who just wrote a book, who just invented something, who's the best fighter out there today. It's a melting pot. Everybody gets together. Okay, the fellows from Wall Street come in here that don't normally hang out with blacks and Hispanics. Say, hey, these guys are great. They're focused. They're concentrated. They're the kind of person I want in my
Right.
building. The guys from the projects come in here and say, you're a white guy. You're pretty good. You're a woman. We don't have to beat you up. There's an equal thing. And what it is, it's the fact that everybody's doing the same thing. We're all learning the sport of boxing. Okay, if Mike Tyson was in here right now, He would talk to you, take a picture, sign an autograph, give you a pointer. Okay, when Ali used to come in, he made a point of going around to everybody in the gym and touching them, kissing them, holding. Boxing are great people, okay? And you get discipline, you get focus, you get concentration, you can overcome your fear. So if you're a student, you do better in school because you're feeling better about yourself, you're concentrated. If you're an attorney, you're doing better in front of the panel than the fat trainer attorney that's next to you. Okay?
Yeah.
If you're whatever it is, you're going to do better. If you're going to go for a job interview, you're going to get the job over the person that isn't in boxing because you have self-confidence, okay? So it's a great sport. Then if you want to go into the medical end of it, it takes care of high blood pressure, it takes care of diabetes. We've had people with all types of illnesses and stage 4 cancer going into remission.
Right.
So the working out and the food that you eat are instrumental in making you a healthier person, and boxing is the best sport there is.
Yeah, boxing is like, you talk about athletes and different sports. You go into the boxing gym, like you said, you don't know who you're standing next to. It humbles you. But I also find many boxers as pro athletes, they're willing to help. They're willing to give back. They talk. They're working out in the gym maybe next to a young kid, and they're giving advice, or they're very open as far as being professional athletes.
If you have a world champion or a top athlete training in your gym, and somebody comes in, that champion will talk to the person, sign an autograph, give him a little bit of advice. Try to do that with a New York Yankee. If you wouldn't even be able to get that close to him, you'll get arrested first. And if you can shout to him, he'll say, "See my agent. It's going to cost you $150 for the autograph." Okay. If Tyson was in here, he would sign an autograph for every single person. Ali, okay. Ali was coming to Gleason's one time for a shoot for Vanity Fair. This was after his career, okay, and he's not doing too well. We were at the other location where you were at, and we're on the second floor. So I get the call from that they're on their way. I said, "Listen, instead of coming up my front door, which is the steps, come to my egress. I have an elevator. It's my back door, but put you in an elevator, bring you up the steps, right?" So I'm waiting for him on the street downstairs. His car pulls up, he gets out of the car, he's walking over towards me. There's a woman walking down the street on the phone. Muhammad Ali, #1 man in the whole world, goes over to the woman, takes the phone out of her hand, puts his arm around her, and starts talking to the person on the other line. That's a boxer.
Yeah.
That's a boxer.
Well, he had great personality, and today he'd probably be one of the richest athletes in the world out there just because of what he was. But I know what you're saying. We were blessed to have Katie Taylor in our gym. She came and she sparred 3 girls getting ready for the first Serrano fight, and afterwards, everyone in the gym she managed to take pictures with, talk to. We kind of have a tradition here.
It's not only the athletes, though. I mean, I get other people in here, like you mentioned, we get actors and actresses and politicians. People come into a boxing gym, they're on good behavior, they're probably a little bit intimidated, but they're nice. They're nice. Yeah. Now, when they go outside the door, all hell breaks
it's a different world.
With Tyson, with anybody. But when people are in a boxing gym, they're respectful, they enjoy themselves, they're on good behavior, because, again, everybody here is doing the same thing. So there's no reason to be upset with anybody.
Now, you know what? And the boxing gym's our happy place.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the gym if I'm unhappy. And the day that happens, that I got to wake up and I got to think about, oh man, I'm going to the gym, I'm done.
That's what I used to think when I was going to Sears Roebuck Company. No longer. Now I enjoy it. But the going into a boxing gym is addictive. If you like it, you're there. If you don't like it, the first week you're gone. So the people that are in the gym like it and they want to be there. Okay. Now, my membership here is month by month. Okay,
right.
People pay month by month.
And no lock-in.
I am telling you the God's honest truth. I have people that have been here 40 years, 35 years, 30 years. People like it. They like the atmosphere. They like the camaraderie. They like a boxing atmosphere. So people stay.
Well, it's the real deal. It's not a fabricated gym. You got old timers. You got everybody else in here, and like you said, boxing is addictive. when my children were smaller, they would say, people would ask, "Where's your father?" And my kids would jokingly say, "He's with his girlfriend." And people would look, "He's with his girlfriend?" "Yeah, he's at the gym. That's his girlfriend."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
without a doubt, without a doubt.
you know, it's definitely addictive.
Well, you're not telling me anything. Listen, as I said, I open the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get here about 4:45 in the morning, 7 days a week. I have very good employees, very good. And when I go away, I don't worry about anything. They can take care of it. So that I don't have to be here that early. I want to be.
Yeah, we want to be. We choose to be.
This is where it's fun.
And this is why you're still active, you're respected in the sport. We want to kind of finish up here with you. So I gave a couple bullet questions at you here real quick. All right? First question for you. If you were going to be in a foxhole, who's the person next to you?
Roberto Duran.
Ah, I like that one.
He wouldn't give up. He would fight.
Yeah, he'd be swinging with you, right? I'm going to give you 3 dinner guests.
Uh-oh.
Whoever you like to go to dinner with, dead or alive, who are your 3 dinner guests?
Muhammad Ali.
That's what I say.
Yeah, he's the most charismatic person that there is. I like Tyson very, very much. We get along very well. He's a very smart person. You can talk most subjects, and he'll be right on there and talking with you. Then I guess I'd like to have Heather Hardy with me.
You want to elaborate on that one? There's got to be an insight in it.
No, listen, I want the champions, and you have to.
Her personality?
Her personality is terrific. She's a good-looking girl, but she's got a great personality.
Yeah.
And she's fun. So
there you go.
She would make the 4 of us laugh all night long.
Yeah, I think that's great. Bruce, I really, really appreciate
so much for
taking
coming.
your time and being down here. And once again, we're going to wrap up Coach's Corner here at Gleason's Gym with the man himself, Bruce Silverglade. So train hard, train smart, and we'll see you in the next round. I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.